Hello everyone, it is another Monday in Paris, and that means another episode of the Eiffel Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G. This show is brought to you by the good people over at French Today who do audiobooks, and I'll be talking about them a lot more at the end of the episode. But let's start at the beginning. In fact, before we even get into today's episode, I just want to tell you a little bit of news, a little bit of the things that have been going on and the things that are going to happen. Firstly, do you like books? And do you like books about France and Paris? If you answered yes to those questions, you should consider being part of the book club, the Eiffel Tower book club that I started about 6 months ago. If you've only just heard about it right now for the first time, you missed out on last month's book, L'Appart, with Chef Dave Leibovitz, whose kitchen I was in just the other day, recording a live video talking about his book club. And the reason I bring it up again today is because I want everyone to be on board with this. And this month, we're in a new month, March, the book is A Year in Paris by author John Baxter. And at the end of the month, the last Tuesday of the month, I'm going to be doing a live Facebook video for book club members from inside his apartment. And I was just over there having a little lunch the other day, and he was showing me his first edition books of some of the famed books. Like, for example, he's got a first edition of a couple of Hemingway books, and he said that he'd agree to show them on the camera. So when we do the live video at the end of the month, you can watch that as well. So join the book club. It's free to... I'm kind of doing a little bit of a test. Free to join. Everyone's welcome. It's in a private Facebook group, all on Facebook for the moment. Free to join with a suggested Patreon subscription of $5 a month. And I'm finding it pretty interesting seeing how many of you guys are signing up on Patreon. But if you enjoy it, if you think it's worth $5 a month, then sign up. You won't get anything extra, but you will be in the book club as an official member, and essentially you'll secure the future of it. Anyway, I think you guys all know about Patreon by now. It's patreon.com/the Eiffel Tower. There's the book club there, and there's all the videos that I've been doing. But enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about today's guest, because I had a really good time recording this one. I think you'll hear it in the recording. It's Annie Sargent from Join Us in France. She's a titan of the France podcasting scene. She's been doing it for years from down in Toulouse, and she typically does episodes about France, traveling in France. She's no stranger to doing a Paris episode or two, but it's mostly about traveling in this wonderful hexagon of a country. So be sure to subscribe to her podcast, Join Us in France, and you can hear a lot more from her. I was a guest on her podcast way back before we did the honeymoon season. So we did it over the phone, and that was Lena, my wife, and I talking with Annie about the plans. And I think she predicted that we were going to break down on the scooter 8 times or something ridiculous. Wrong, Annie, once. We were all wrong, I think. But anyway, you're going to hear when Annie came into the studio here in Paris. We talked a little bit about Paris, but also about the rest of France and why you should visit it. But it was a really fun chat. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you guys enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. But yeah, let's get into it. Another Monday in Paris. I'm Oliver G. This is the Eiffel Tower. Take it away. Annie Sargent, welcome to the studio.
Well, thank you so much. It's good to meet you in person.
It is, because, well, we almost met each other.
We almost, yeah.
When I was down in Toulouse.
Yes, you were down my neck of the woods, and I was too, but I was very busy with a tour group, and I couldn't abandon the group.
How much did we miss each other by? Like a day?
Oh, just a day. It was just the day all the group was arriving, you were there. And I was like, well, I can't, Well, at the end of the tour, maybe I'll be sick of them.
Right. So what would you have showed me if I had met you in Toulouse?
So in Toulouse, I would have walked you around the downtown area, La Place du Capitole, the banks of the river,
right.
Pont Neuf. We have a Pont Neuf in Toulouse as well.
Is it as good as the one in Paris?
No.
Because I'm fascinated by the one in Paris. No, that is an incredible.
It's a beautiful. I mean, it's very nice in Toulouse as well, and they do put some beautiful art that comes and goes, that they light up very nicely, But no, it's not as nice as the Pont Neuf in Paris. But it's the same idea. It's also the oldest bridge in Toulouse.
Right.
But in Toulouse, the draw is not so much the museums and all of that. It's more everyday life and the fact that you just walk around, enjoy the warmer weather, because I'm sorry, but the weather sucks here.
In Paris?
Not this week.
This week is incredible.
This week is wonderful.
Yeah. But in Toulouse is what is typically like...
It's a lot more like this.
Yeah.
We do get rainy days, but not near as much as you do in Paris.
Right.
Yeah, so less rain.
And it's got a great nickname for a city, the Pink City.
Yeah, La Ville Rose. La Ville Rose.
La Ville Rose. And you were born there, right?
Yes, born and raised. Yeah.
Right. So
in
I think
the center of the city.
In terms of France, I can't think off the top of my head of a city with a better nickname than the Pink City. Are there any other? I mean, the City of Light and the City of Love for Paris.
No, the Pink City is pretty good. La Ville Rose is just beautiful, but it's not really pink. Is the thing? It's more of a red.
Yeah.
But it depends on the light. It depends on how the light shines on the brick. I don't know if you know this, but in Toulouse we have a lot of brick because we have the right dirt to make brick.
Right.
And this, my sister actually works for a company that manufactures and sells handmade Toulouse bricks.
What, as into tourists or what?
No, to builders.
To
builders.
I thought she was just sort of got some sort of undercover business taking bricks off buildings and piling off the tourists.
No. It's an actual company that still makes bricks the old-fashioned way. And she sells those, and they cost a fortune, the old-fashioned, when they're handmade like this. And they've always been expensive to make. And so in Paris, on the facades, when you see the beautiful cream stone, to make it look more impressive, they used to put a few highlights of red brick.
You mean here in Paris?
In Paris, yes, because that shows that you were rich. If you have the highlights of, like Place Dauphine.
Yep, I was there very recently filming. So that's got...
Place Dauphine, the reason why it has the red brick in between the stone is to show off how wealthy you are.
Really?
Because the brick had to come all the way from Toulouse. Well, not necessarily Toulouse specifically. There were many manufacturers, but yes.
That's interesting.
Yes, so in Toulouse, it's kind of the heartland of the country. Yeah. And of course, Toulouse joined France much later than...
right, because it was... what was it called? The whole...
Comté. C'est le Comté Toulousain.
Right.
So...
What does that mean?
It's a county.
The county?
Yeah.
But it wasn't France? It used to be like...
No, for a long time it wasn't.
Right.
They had to decide. It's actually Henry IV who brought a lot of the southern parts of France into France.
Right, and who also did the Pont Neuf in Paris.
Exactly.
Henry IV, he was everywhere, wasn't he?
Yes, well, for a while.
Yeah.
He didn't last forever.
No.
But his equestrian statue adorns the Pont Neuf.
Right by Place Dauphine, and everything comes in a big circle.
Yes.
Or a big triangle, if we're talking about Place Dauphine. But
it's a square. It's a square.
How is it a square?
Square.
Oh, it's called a square.
C'est la Square Dauphine.
So I did a YouTube video that I hope some of you listeners saw, where I was up on a balcony terrace looking over the Place Dauphine.
Oh, that would be nice. How'd you manage that?
I know people.
Oh.
I know people. That was Leah Walker, who was a guest on the show, took me up there to this view over the whole the whole triangle. I know it's a square, but looking at it was very clear that it was a beautiful triangle.
Oh, it's a triangle for sure. But in France, we like to call small little parks, maybe you would call that a pocket park, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, we call those squares.
Right.
And they're not square at all. Most of them, they're triangular. Like le Square du Vert Galant, just beneath.
Yeah, that's also a triangle.
That's also a triangle, isn't it?
Everything. French and their spatial awareness or their geographical, I don't know, geometrical.
No, it's because it comes from England. Because a lot of the French kings had spent time in England, in London. And over there you have a lot of things that are called square, because they are square. But they just imported the term without paying attention to the shape.
And then just called everything a square.
Yeah.
In France, they don't say we call a spade a spade. They say we call a spade a square, right? Maybe not. Maybe not.
No.
But listen, so we as interesting as Toulouse is, and as interesting as Square Dauphine is, we figured that we'd talk a little bit today about the idea is, so you're a podcaster and you promote France a lot.
Yeah.
Travel around France, Paris as well, but especially France.
Yeah.
And when we met up today, I said that we should do this episode about this idea of there's more to France than just Paris.
No kidding, there is.
And I figured that you could try and convince the listeners and me. I'm going to be a stubborn Paris fan. That it's worth. So imagine people who are coming here for a week or 2 weeks, or I mean, a lot of people come to Paris for a month and don't leave.
Well, I understand that. There's plenty to see in Paris. But among my podcast listeners, there's also a lot of interest in doing day trips from Paris. So what they want to do is they want to leave Paris, but they want to come back at night, which is fine as well. But I also have a lot of podcast listeners who really explore the country. And usually it's because they've seen Paris enough times and they just figure, look, I want to see the rest. And they are usually, they're always telling me, I can't believe how much there was to see outside of Paris. I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole country.
But it does get, I mean, the rest of France really does get overlooked by
yes.
And why? I mean, do you think that's because Paris is, and I'm sort of going to play the devil's advocate here. Do you think it's because Paris is so good or because the rest of France is so unworth seeing?
So the reality is Paris has been genius at marketing the silliest places.
Like, what do you mean?
Okay, Canal Saint-Martin.
Yeah.
It's a freaking canal.
Yeah.
It's not interesting.
Yeah, I like the canal.
Okay, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's bugs and there's drunks and there's people sleeping along the canal.
True, that's true.
And you know what? We have the Canal du Midi. That is a canal that's actually made a difference.
That's true.
In the history of the country. Of course, it came a bit too late because once the railroad arrived, which was another 80 years later, then the barges went out of style. Well, no, they weren't needed as much. They would put stuff on trains. But the Canal du Midi was revolutionary because you were able finally to go between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic without going around Spain.
And we should, besides just the practicality of it, we should paint a picture because some of the listeners maybe have no idea what we're talking about. This is a beautiful canal with is it plane trees along the side of it?
Yeah, they're changing them now because there's a bug that's eating them alive. But
the same kind of bugs that are at the Canal Saint-Martin? Here we go.
That's what it is.
The truth on the
them.
rails. But it's a really beautiful. And when I did the big scooter trip for the honeymoon season of this show, or the honeymoon of my life, really, not just the season of the show.
Hopefully.
We went along that canal and it was like gobsmackingly beautiful.
Yeah, it's very nice. And it's much longer and it's much more interesting and there's more history to it.
Fewer drunks.
Oh, well, there's in places. So when you're right in front of the train station in Toulouse, there used to be like lots of drunks right there. Right. And now they are eliminating them. They're moving them away.
Killing them?
No, nothing like that. Moving them.
So the canal, does that go from the? I thought it started in Toulouse, but does it start at the sea?
Okay, so there are technicalities. There's several canals that join up.
I see.
Right, and typically you used to be able to do all the way from using various canals. They change names along the way. You used to be able to do from the Atlantic to the Med. But now nobody does that. So some of these parts are not used anymore. And so what most people do is between Toulouse and Sète.
Sète, yeah.
That's the place that gets a lot of people riding, or Narbonne. In Narbonne, they actually have a whole arm of the canal that's nothing but parked boats for the tourist season.
I remember Narbonne. There's a cool bridge going through the middle of town with shops on it, and you can go into the shops and look over the bridge. I thought that was amazing.
Back to the Pont Neuf. Pont Neuf in Paris is the first bridge to not have shops on it.
What, the first bridge in France to not have shops on it?
I don't know about France, but Paris.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they always had.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I feel like I could do a whole episode about the Pont Neuf in Paris because it's so interesting.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
That's basically the first sidewalks, the first people watching, the first. One of my favorite facts is, and I said it. I said before I've recommended the book. There's a book, How Paris Became Paris, that I read, and the author was explaining. In Paris today you get those little dangly metallic keychains of the Eiffel Tower, and that's kind of the main tacky souvenir.
Very tacky, yeah.
Right. The first souvenir, apparently, of Paris was fans, that you wave, paper fans you wave on yourself.
With the Pont Neuf on it.
With the Pont Neuf on it. And that's what they'd sell. So this is 400 years ago.
I should buy one of those for my brother. He loves the fans.
If they still exist.
Yeah, I should look.
You should buy one for your sister as well. She sounds like a nice woman.
Oh, my sister's wonderful too.
Yeah. But back to the Canal Saint-Martin. Apparently that served a purpose too, though.
It did. It brought water.
Yeah. And it connected to the river. And I think Napoleon had a hand in that one.
Yeah.
One of the Napoleons.
Napoleon III. It was bringing clean water into Paris was a major project. So Haussmann needed water. Yes, but that's a.
But it's not. You are right.
But again, about Paris. Enough about Paris. Paris is fine.
People will reach over and turn off the podcast if we don't mention it every now and again. But tell me, okay, I'm going to put you in a situation, right? You've got an email from a couple. We'll say they're in America. You get an American couple. We'll say they're from Denver.
Okay.
Maybe there's some people in Denver listening now,
Sure.
excited
Hello,
that they're
Denver.
getting mentioned. Yeah. Hello, Denver. And they say, Annie, I'm going to be in Paris for 14 days, but I want to do a 2-day trip. And I want to go stay somewhere real nice.
Okay, then I would ask them, are you interested in wine?
Nah, no time for it.
Oh, okay. Are you interested in gastronomy?
Oh, I love a bit of gastronomy.
Okay. Then your choices with gastronomy are, you can go to Burgundy or Lyon, where you would eat a lot of pork and cream. You could go all the way to Provence, where you would eat fabulous Mediterranean diet, just fabulous food. Lots of olive oil and tomatoes and vegetables. Wonderful food. Or you could go towards Bordeaux or Auch, where you eat duck.
Sorry,
duck,
what did
duck,
you say?
duck.
What's it called?
Auch.
Bless you. Well, how do you spell? Oh, is it
A-U-C-H.
Ah, yeah.
Auch.
I always thought that was pronounced ouch.
No.
I always hoped it was pronounced ouch.
Dans le Gers. Go.
Is it what Gers is pronounced Gers?
Gers, yes.
Really?
Yes.
I never even guessed how that was pronounced. I thought it was like Gur or something.
No, le Gers.
Gers.
So down that way, they also have very nice gastronomy. So since we have to talk about Paris every few minutes, or your listeners will
every
stop.
4.5 minutes, we just have to mention it.
Paris really has no regional specialty,
Right.
other than the onion soup.
Okay, I thought onion soup had something to do with Brittany.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there are other parts of France that claim the onion soup. What do they have?
You know, there's one thing.
Macaron, maybe.
You know, one thing that is a kind of specialty here that I intend to dig into a bit deeper is the wine that they make in Montmartre.
Oh, that's ridiculous! It's disgusting.
Have you tasted it?
Yes, it's not good.
Yeah, but I have to taste it. I have to.
Sure.
Yeah, I live there now.
Yeah. Oh, you live in Montmartre?
I live just on the opposite side of the hill from the vineyard.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's 40 euros a bottle though.
Exactly. It's terribly overpriced. It's not very good, but. Sure. Why not?
Yeah, you got to do everything once,
Paris,
right, Annie?
The thing is, Paris used to have to import all its food, wine, all of that. And as French people, we want wine, obviously. So there used to be vineyards all around the region, but they've since noticed that the wine here wasn't as good as the wine in other places. Yeah. And so they've developed the city in other ways, and we get the wine in the south and in the west, southwest. And,
import it from Australia.
Yeah, some of us do, yeah.
You know, there's a vineyard in the 15th arrondissement in Parc Georges Brassens.
Oh.
Which I discovered by accident.
Yeah, you're teaching me one. I never heard of that one.
Yeah, well, you can use it on your show if you like.
And no.
No. Forget it, Oliver.
You know, that's one thing. I really don't like to send people on wild goose chases.
Right, what does that mean? I'm not sending people on a wild goose chase.
Yeah, but no, you are, because you're mentioning this vineyard in Parc Georges Brassens, and they're going to be looking for it. And
yeah, you're
what
right.
Is it, like
Don't look for it. Don't look for it, guys. No, I think what I'm doing there, I'm not encouraging anyone to check it. I'm just adding an anecdote to their life.
Yeah, you're name dropping with the wine.
Yeah, I think I am actually. But it's a cool fact. There are 2 vineyards within the periphery of Paris. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's all right.
I could make it to a blog post.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I love history. Yeah. So I love a good story about how somebody was eviscerated because he slapped somebody's daughter or something.
Right. That was very specific.
Yeah. But I can't remember the name of the princess.
Right.
I shouldn't have brought that up. But yes, that's another thing that I really like. So if I'm going to bring up something trivial, it's going to be something trivial from the past.
Yeah, we won't get on very well because I love trivial stuff. I'm full of it. Do you like the graveyards in Paris?
I love them.
They have some good, you got to admit, there's some good graveyards.
Yes, both Cimetière de Montmartre and Père Lachaise are excellent. There's others, of course.
Montparnasse is not bad.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah, but Montmartre is good too. That's where...
there's some...
that's where Dalida is
okay,
buried.
So I've been to that. No. Yes, you're right. She's buried...
You know, I met a woman feeding cats in there the other day. And she says she confides in me that there's 70 cats living in there.
Oh, goodness.
And she said, don't tell anyone. Oops. She said, don't tell anyone because she says the authorities will crack down on them.
You don't have a podcast, do you, where you would talk about that?
You know what, though? I did...
See, you're sending people on more wild goose chases.
Well, I'll tell you something, Annie. I took... occasionally, I do tours for people. And just yesterday, I took people on a tour in Montmartre Cemetery.
Yeah.
And they had kids. And we made a game of seeing if they could see more cats than I'd ever seen in there before. My previous record was 6. We got 11.
11, that's good.
It's not bad.
Yeah, that's
like
good.
1/7 of the whole population.
That's good. And cats, kids love cats.
Kids do love cats.
Yeah, they do love cats.
Anyway, let's talk about outside of Paris again.
Yes.
Are there good cemeteries outside of Paris that are famous?
Yes, everywhere.
But like famous ones?
Okay, where my family is buried is called Tercabade, and it's a very large cemetery in France, in Toulouse, and it's over a hill. It used to be outside of the city because that was the idea. You wanted to bury the people outside to avoid, when they had this whole hygiene thing in the 1800s, late 1800s. But the city has since grown around it. But it's beautiful. It's got mausoleums, much like you would see at Père Lachaise, except fewer famous people. A lot fewer. I mean, we don't have Jim Morrison, okay?
No,
no, we don't.
Not to mention, I just thought all the war graveyards around sort of northern France.
Right.
They're tourist attractions in themselves.
Right? They are. You mean the American cemeteries and the German cemeteries?
There's a lot of it. There's Australian ones as well.
Yes, and I've done several episodes of the podcast.
So your podcast, you've done episodes on, you've done a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
How many have you done?
223.
That's a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
And you've covered like the whole country basically.
Pretty much. There's parts that we haven't talked about enough.
Like what?
The north, la région, le Grand Nord.
Right.
Le Grand Nord.
Le Nord. We did that at the same time.
Yes, we have the same cultural reference here.
Is that Le Nord, the idea of the North, is that something that became really famous through the movie?
Bienvenue chez les Ch'tis.
Or was it already something?
Well, this actor is very famous.
Right. Which one?
I can't remember
Danny
his
Boone?
name. No. The guy who says that line. He's kind of a heavy older man.
Kind of like a Godfather kind of character.
Kinda, yeah, and he has a deep voice.
I can picture his face, but I don't know his name. Yeah. And we're talking about, for you guys who haven't heard, there's a movie called, in English, I think it's called Welcome to the Sticks or something like that. It's got a different name in English, but in French it's Bienvenue chez les Ch'tis. And it's very hard to understand as a foreigner. Even with subtitles, the jokes don't translate. It's about the way they speak in the north. Do you know much about this? I've never talked about this on the podcast before.
Yeah, I do know about
so this Ch'ti thing.
Yes.
What's the deal with that?
Well, it's their regional language, and they had to tone it down a lot for the movie.
Really?
Yes, it's even worse. I've heard... I know people who grew up in that part of France, and they've talked it between themselves. So husband and wife couple, and we had them over for dinner, and I said, "Come on, talk Ch'ti," and and so they did at full speed, and
really? But what's it like? So imagine that the Denver couple is still listening to us.
Yeah.
It's French, but with an accent, or it's a different dialect?
No, it's a different dialect. That one is completely different.
I thought it was just like you add a "st" in the middle of everything.
No.
Like bonjour, je m'appelle Oliver.
No. It's a real dialect, and it's like I said, they toned it down for the movie because they knew French people they might get the simple things that you hear when you visit that part of France, but they wouldn't get the real conversational stuff.
And I think I read that it was the most successful French movie of all time.
Probably. Yeah, of the recent ones anyway.
You guys should all watch it, but beware, it's very language based. It's a guy from the Mediterranean goes up to the north and can't understand what's going on. So let's get back to your podcast. You've done episodes around a lot of the country, not so much about the north at your own admission there.
Yeah.
But have you got a place in France that's a kind of favorite topic that you could always come back to?
Okay, so places I really enjoy, like for families, I love Dordogne, which is just north of Toulouse a little ways, because it offers a lot of outdoors activities. The weather is nice. There's a lot of English speakers.
A lot of English people.
A lot of English people in the Dordogne. And
why
so it's
is that?
easy.
What's so good about that?
It's historical. It's because of it used to be part of the county of Aquitaine.
Right, Eleanor.
And so there were some places along the Dordogne River. You had one side was an English castle and the other side was a French castle,
really?
Which of course didn't mean that they spoke English or French, because back then everybody spoke Occitan.
Occitan.
Yes.
Right.
Even Richard the Lionheart.
Right. He spoke it as well.
His native tongue was Occitan.
So Richard, that's, if I'm correct here, the son of Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Yes.
because she married a French king and a man who became the English king.
Right.
She was around, wasn't she?
And he grew, yes, she married a few, and he grew up in the southwest of France.
Ah, how
cool. So that's another thing. You need to get out, because a lot of these historical figures were not in Paris. Paris was not the strong capital of France that we know today until quite recently.
What does that mean, quite recently?
Well, 1500s.
Right.
That's when the power of Paris really solidified, that's when it started, and it took time. So that's when different parts of France joined in. But it used to be that the counts of Provence were more powerful than the king of France.
Really?
Yes. So you have a lot of history that you won't even touch on unless you leave Paris.
See, guys, if this Denver couple is still listening, I think you've convinced them.
Yeah, well, I would like to convince a few people. I know it's a hard sell, because people, if you want to come to the south of France, consider taking the train.
Yeah, why?
Because the train is such a better experience than Charles de Gaulle, the airport.
Yeah.
You have to fly in, but when you fly in, spend a few nights in Paris.
Get it out of your system.
Do whatever you want in Paris, and then take a TGV, a fast train, to get to Provence, or to get to Bordeaux, or to get to Toulouse, or even Normandy.
Yeah.
And spend a week in an Airbnb. You can either rent a car, or you could use regional transportation.
Take a scooter.
A scooter would be okay. Yeah, it wouldn't work for me. I'm too heavy for that. But it would work for you. And but just go and explore the area, and go slow, and cook your own meals.
Sure.
And don't be so worried about going after the 2 rows of stupid vines at Georges Brassens Park in Paris. Who cares?
Wow, you hated that
we
one.
have millions of wine producers.
That's a really good point. It would be pretty stupid to come and
Yeah.
Because if you're staying in, let's just say you're staying in the Marais or in Montmartre in Paris, the trip that it would take you to get to the 15th and find those vines and then go home,
it would take 3 hours.
You could almost go to Burgundy.
Yes, you could.
Yeah.
On the TGV train, you would be in Burgundy. And that's where the real wine is.
Yeah. And then maybe stay a night. And the other thing that a lot of foreigners will find, and that I found as well when I traveled around France, and I should add, I do love the rest of France. I'm just, I'm doing it for the podcast here.
Sure.
But you will learn French better than in Paris, because everybody there, in Paris, people love switching to English immediately.
It worked for me.
But I think it's great if you go and spend, as Annie said, you go and stay in an Airbnb and eat and cook the local food. You'll get a better French experience in terms of immersing yourself.
And I've had several episodes where it's people telling me just that. You know, that sometimes they spent a month, 2 months, and they just rented a place and just took their normal life at home, except they were in Provence all of a sudden, or in Normandy, or in Dordogne, or Normandy. I haven't had an episode about that, but I'm sure it's done. Although Normandy, it rains a lot. Oh, it rains a lot.
I can tell you're from the south.
Oh, the rain in Normandy is terrible.
But a lot of expats, and in Brittany often as well.
Yeah.
But a lot of expats do that trip for a month or 2 months as a tourist, and then they become a transplant and they move.
They do. I know several,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, guys. Nothing wrong with that.
Well,
and it's a dream of a lot of people.
It is a dream of a lot of people. I lived in the U.S. for 18 years, which is a dream of a lot of French people.
Denver?
Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay.
Other side of the mountains.
Right, not so far away. Utah,
yes.
Cool.
Yes. And so that's a dream of French people. And then when I moved back to France, home, all the French people said, "Why did you move back?
Really?
What are you doing here? You lived in America. You have an American passport now. You have an American husband.
Yeah.
You should have stayed." And I'm like, no, I want to come home and get to know my own country. Because 18 years away is a long time. Actually, it was 16 years in the U.S. and 2 years in London. And so I was 18 years away altogether. And it was a long time. And when I came back, I just didn't know my own country. I thought I did. I told my husband it's going to be a piece of cake. Yeah. Easy. I had terrible cultural shock when I came back.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept, that idea of having culture shock in your own country.
You do. If you went back to Australia, you might.
I know, and I wonder about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I've been away for a good 8 to 10 years now, and a lot of French people say to me the same thing. They go, "What are you doing here when you could be in Australia?" Because French people love to travel to Australia.
Yes, it's beautiful.
But back to France, I want to ask you, and we're running out of time actually.
Yes, we are.
Is what, and I like this question personally, I like to ask people, if you're going to be deported back to America or London, back to Salt Lake City for reasons unknown,
yes,
and you get to spend one last weekend somewhere in France, and you're never to return again, you have to stay one place, where would it be and why?
It would be a beach. It would be along the Mediterranean, probably.
Okay. We need to be more specific than that, Annie.
Okay, it might be Montpellier.
Right.
I love Montpellier because it's close to the beach. It might be Sète. I think Sète is a beautiful place.
Sète is so small, though, right?
It's very small.
You got a whole weekend in Sète. You can't travel, you know.
Oh.
Yeah, there's restrictions here.
I like the beach, see, and I could go on the other coast, but it's colder.
Okay. Well, I'll lift the travel. Tell me what's so good about Sète, and we can sort of finish.
Okay, Sète, I love the ambiance. I love the local people because I understand. Again, it's probably because I understand their culture. They have these jousts. You have a lot of...
What? Still, they do jousting?
Yes, but it's boat jousting.
Ah, what?
So they row the boats, and then the rowers bring in the oars, and then you have guys and women who joust each other. And this is a great game for me because the heaviest person is always the one jousting.
What, have you done it before?
No, but when they have a woman, it's always a heavy woman. I'm like, yes!
Yeah. Well, I guess if it's your last weekend in France, you could do it.
I would love to do that. I would love to do that.
What's the worst that happens? You get jousted.
I would get dunked in the water, but it doesn't matter. That's what you do.
And what else is, I mean, that's the...
I love their food. I love the fact that they have Georges Brassens was from there.
Ah.
Yeah, and
I knew he'd come back in the conversation.
Yes, and I love his music. I take my little guitar or even the ukulele and just go sing songs on the beach or something. My last weekend. I mean, what am I gonna do?
That sounds like a lovely way. Jousting, Georges Brassens, and a bit of ukulele.
Yes,
I think that's wonderful, Annie. And for you guys wondering, Sète, it's Sete.
Yes.
If you want to look it up.
And it's quite small. I mean, really, don't plan a whole week there.
Yeah, just the weekend before deportation comes up.
Yes.
All right, well, Annie Sargent, thank you for coming into the studio in Paris.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely meeting you.
Yeah, me too. I hope next time it'll be in Toulouse again and we can make it work.
Back.
Yes, I will.
I don't have a studio, though.
That's okay.
But I do have a garden.
Well, that'll work. In fact, that sounds even nicer.
There you go.
All right, Annie, thanks for coming in.
All right, goodbye. Au revoir.
Well, there you have it. That was Annie Sargent, and a fun conversation at that. Real pleasure to have her in the studio. And you know what I really liked? She gave good answers that were very different to some of the other guests I've had. She didn't care to say the Canal Saint-Martin was rubbish. Agree with her or not, it was refreshing answers. So thank you, Annie, if you're still listening. But as usual, as I've been doing all year, it's time to talk about learning French. Why? Well, because they are the sponsors of this show. And, secondly, I think it's quite interesting. It was quite fun. I had a coffee in my new favorite coffee shop up in Montmartre with a listener and Patreon supporter, Mitch. So if you're listening, Mitch, I'm going to quote you right now. He said he enjoys these little French lessons at the end of the episode, and he has been splicing some of the things he's learned into his conversation. So I'm really happy to hear that. As for the rest of you, if it's your first time here, basically I tell you how I'm progressing with French Today, which is a website that sells audiobooks teaching you French. And the voice on the audiobooks is Camille, and she's been on the show a bunch of times, and you'll hear from her again soon. But what I figured is it's a new month, March, the third month of the year. I've started doing the third level of the audiobook. So it's starting to get interesting, and I'm following, for you guys who don't know how these audiobooks work, is you play it and you repeat it and you play it and you repeat it, and it kind of teaches you real French rather than just sitting there and doing the subjunctive tense, if it even exists, and just learning how people speak French by repeating, regular everyday stuff. And, the new I mean, it feels like a new season has started, the third audiobook I'm on, and here are a few of the things that I've jotted down. So our main character, Mary, well, good news for Mary, she's staying in Paris, and if you, like me, have been following the last couple of audiobooks, you'll see that's good news as well, and I don't suppose they could have continued if she went back to England. Anyway, so spoiler alert, she stays in Paris. But here's a few of the things I've jotted down after doing the first couple of chapters of the third level of the audiobook. So here you go. First, a word I didn't know. Might surprise you. I didn't know the word soulagé. Soulagé. Relieved. It's a good one to use. Je suis soulagé. And then the way it was used kind of a couple times in the same chapter. Comme je suis soulagé. And comme je suis content. As if to say, oh, how I'm happy. Oh, how happy I am. That's the one this week that I'm going to try and use in conversation. Comme je suis content. Comme je suis content. A couple of more easy things. The grandma, generous grandma, gets mentioned a few times. I think it was her that said the line, Le grand esprit se rencontre. It's kind of like when great minds think alike. When two minds think, great minds think alike. That's what I'm thinking of. We're going to be a bit harder to slip into conversation, but I've never seen that written before. Les grands esprits se rencontrent. Sounds nice. And then another one I wrote down just because I never have said it before. But when people are talking about a plan for the night and you want to let them choose, and you want to say like, up to you, or I'll let you choose, the way you should say it, je vous laisse choisir. I like that. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. That's pretty nice way to talk to your group of friends. Let them decide what's going on. And similar for you guys listening at home, if you want to join the fun and learn French or improve your French with me, use the link frenchtoday.com/earful3. EARFUL3, the digit, the number 3. And if you use that, you get an additional 10% off their audiobooks. And why do I want you to do that? It helps them track to see if it's working to advertise with the Eiffel Tower. So if you buy stuff, do it via that link. And then they'll continue to, hopefully, they'll continue to sponsor the Eiffel Tower. So, are you guys going to buy the audiobooks? I don't know. Je vous laisse choisir. You see what I did there? Anyway, more episodes coming up. I've got more episodes recorded than ever before. I've got, I think, 4 or 5 ready. So coming up in the upcoming weeks are photographer Rebecca Plotnick, author and illustrator Jessie from Paris in Stride. I've got Slim and the Beast in the studio performing live songs and a cover, and much more than that. That's all coming to you on the Eiffel Tower. Do me a favor, tell your friends about this show. As important as it is to me that you guys sign up on Patreon or that you buy the French Today audiobooks, the most important thing of all is that you get on that phone, call your friend and say there's a podcast that you literally have just listened to the whole episode of, and you want them to join in with you. So get onto it. Thanks for doing that for me, and I'll see you again on Monday with another episode of the Eiffel Tower. Thank you very much. Au revoir.